Two rose bushes, same variety, same garden center, planted the same weekend, just a few feet apart in the same bed. It is now midsummer, and one of them is a tall, leafy fountain, throwing out one flush of blooms after another, while the other is short, scraggly, half bare, and squeezing out a sad little flower here and there. Same sun, same soil, same rain. So what happened? The gap comes down to 7 things the bigger bush got, and the smaller one did not. 7 tricks that quietly double or even triple the speed a rose grows. And here is my promise to you. By the end of this video, you will be able to look at any rose, including your own, and spot exactly which of these it is missing. None of this is the tired old advice about giving it sun and pruning in spring that you have heard 1,000 times. This is the real mechanical reason one rose explodes and another just sits there. And stick with me, because trick number 4 is going to stop you in your tracks. It feels completely wrong, like you are sabotaging your own plant, and it is one of the most powerful things you can do. Let's figure out what the bigger bush knew. Trick number 1. Get the bud union right, or nothing else matters. Before we touch feeding, pruning, or watering, we have to talk about the one thing that was already decided before your rose even woke up: how deep you planted it. Most roses you buy are grafted, meaning a beautiful flowering variety has been joined onto a tough rootstock, and the joint between them is that swollen, knuckly lump near the base called the bud union. Where you set that lump relative to the soil line quietly controls how fast your rose will ever grow. If you plant with the bud union sitting high and exposed the way a lot of people do without thinking, that joint dries out, bakes in the sun, and gets stressed. A stressed union is slow to push new canes, so the whole plant idles in low gear for its first year or two. Set it correctly and the union stays protected, the graft heals fast, and the plant pours its energy into top growth instead of survival. The rule is simple. In mild climates, plant so the bud union sits right at the soil surface or just barely below it. In colder regions, bury it a couple of inches under so it is sheltered from frost. And here's the bonus: almost nobody tells you. When you bury that union, the flowering variety above it will often start sending out roots of its own over time. And a rose growing on its own roots is frequently tougher and more vigorous for the long haul. So planting depth is not a fussy detail. It is the foundation every other trick is built on. Trick number 2, water the feet, never the face. Now let's fix the habit that is silently throttling more roses than anything else: how you water. The instinct is to grab the hose and shower the whole plant from above. Leaves and all, it feels generous. And it is quietly capping your rose's growth in 2 separate ways. First, the obvious one. Roses are thirsty, hungry plants with deep roots, and a light sprinkle only wets the top inch of soil. The roots never get a reason to drive downward, so you end up with a shallow root system that dries out the moment you skip a day. And shallow roots can never support fast top growth. What you want instead is deep, infrequent watering. A long, slow soak aimed straight at the base, then a proper gap before the next one. That trains the roots to go deep, and deep roots are the engine behind every fast-growing rose. Second, and this is the part people miss completely, when you splash water all over the foliage, you are rolling out the welcome mat for black spot and mildew, the fungal diseases that strip a rose's leaves bare. And here is why that destroys growth. Leaves are the solar panels. A rose covered in healthy green foliage is photosynthesizing at full power, building the sugars it needs to grow fast. A rose that has lost half its leaves to black spot has had its engine cut in half. So keep the water at the roots, keep the leaves dry, and if you ever do water from above, do it early in the morning so the sun dries everything off quickly. Dry leaves are fast-growing leaves. Trick number 3, feed it like the glutton it is. Here's where roses flip the script on almost every other plant in your garden. A lot of plants resent being overfed. Roses are flat-out greedy, and a rose running on empty simply cannot grow fast no matter what else you do for it. If your rose is pale, slow, and stingy with its blooms, there is a very good chance it is just hungry. So feed it on a rhythm, a balanced rose feed as growth kicks off in spring, and again after the first big flush of flowers to fuel the next one. But here is the trick that separates the people growing decent roses from the people growing monsters. And it is an old rose society secret almost nobody outside that world knows. Plain alfalfa meal, or pellets, the same stuff sold as animal feed. Either scratch a few handfuls into the soil around the base or steep it in a bucket of water for a few days to make a tea and pour that on. Why would dried hay do anything at all? Because alfalfa contains a natural compound called triacontanol, a genuine plant growth stimulant. It acts almost like a hormone, and it is especially good at triggering basal breaks. Those are the thick, strong new canes that shoot straight up from the very base of the plant, the canes that rebuild and expand your rows. A bush that throws several of them in a season looks like a completely different plant by autumn. Feed the rows richly, slip in the alfalfa, and you have handed it both the fuel and the signal to grow. Trick number 4. Steal its flowers. This is the one I told you to wait for. To make your rose grow faster and bloom more, you have to take its flowers away from it. Sometimes the very first flowers you have been waiting all season to see. I know exactly how that sounds. You bought a rose to get roses, and here I am telling you to cut them off, and in some cases to pinch off the buds before they ever open. It feels like self-sabotage. It is actually the smartest thing you can do. Here is the mechanism because the why is everything. A rose does not flower for your benefit. From the plant's point of view, a flower has exactly one job: to be pollinated, fade, and form a seed pod, what rose growers call a hip. And the moment a rose sets a hip, it gets a powerful internal signal that says, mission accomplished. You can stop now. Growth and flowering wind down because as far as the plant is concerned, it has already done its job for the year. So if you let those spent flowers sit on the bush and quietly turn into hips, you are literally telling your rose to slow down. Now flip it. When you snip off each bloom the moment it starts to fade, cutting back to a healthy set of leaves before it can ever form a hip, the plant never gets that signal. It stays stuck in striving mode, convinced it still has a job to finish, so it keeps pushing fresh growth and a whole new round of flowers. That is the real reason regular deadheading makes a rose bloom in waves all season instead of once and done. And here's the harder, even more powerful version for a young or newly planted rose. In that first year, pinch off the flower buds before they open at all. Yes, sacrifice the blooms entirely. Every scrap of energy the plant is not spending on flowers and seeds goes straight into building roots, canes, and structure instead. You give up one season of sow flowers, and in return you get a vigorous, established powerhouse that outgrows and outblooms its neighbors for years. Stealing the flowers feels backwards right up until the moment you watch the plant explode with growth. That is the one nobody believes until they try it. Trick number 5. Cut harder than you dare. If trick 4 made you nervous, this one is going to test you because the single most common way people hold their roses back is being too gentle with the pruners. They give the bush a timid little trim, nipping the very tips, terrified of taking too much. And the rose responds with weak, twiggy, tired growth because a soft prune sends a soft signal. Roses are built to be cut hard. A bold prune does not weaken the plant, it triggers it. When you cut a cane back hard, you concentrate all of that root system's stored energy into far fewer growing points, and the plant answers with thick, strong, fast new shoots instead of a tangle of thin ones. So in late winter or early spring, just before the plant fully wakes up, prune with conviction, removing a good chunk of the previous year's growth on most modern bush roses. But cut with intention because where you cut matters just as much as how much. Make each cut just above a bud that faces outward, away from the center of the plant. That bud becomes a new shoot, and because it points outward, it opens the bush into a vase shape with a clear, airy center. And that open center is doing real work. It lets light reach deep into the plant and lets air flow through, which keeps the foliage dry and disease-free. While you are at it, cut out anything dead, anything thinner than a pencil, and any two branches rubbing against each other. Be brave with the pruners. The rose is not asking you to be careful. It is asking you to be decisive. Trick number 6, give it a magnesium wake-up. This one is small, cheap, and weirdly effective. The fix is magnesium, and the easiest source is plain Epsom salt, magnesium sulfate, the same stuff sold for soaking sore muscles. A spoonful or two worked into the soil around the base in spring, or dissolved in a watering can and poured on, can make a real difference. Here is why it works. Magnesium sits at the literal center of every chlorophyll molecule, the green pigment that lets leaves capture sunlight. When a rose runs short on magnesium, you can see it. The older leaves go yellow between the veins, while the veins themselves stay green, and the whole plant takes on a tired, washed-out look. A rose with weak, yellowing leaves is once again a rose running its solar panels at half power. Top up the magnesium and the foliage greens up deep and rich, photosynthesis ramps back up, and growth follows right behind it. There is a second payoff that experienced rose growers swear by too. Magnesium is widely used to encourage those basal breaks we talked about earlier, the strong new canes erupting from the base of the plant. Pair an Epsom salt feed in spring with the alfalfa from Trick 3, and you are hitting the plant with everything it needs to push fresh canes from the ground up. It is a tiny, almost insultingly cheap step, but the green up alone is usually worth it. Trick number 7, tuck the roots in and keep them calm. The last trick is about everything happening below the soil, out of sight, where the growth race is actually won or lost. Rose's roots are surprisingly fussy about one thing: stability. They want even moisture and a steady, cool temperature, and bare soil gives them neither. It swings hot and cold with the weather, bakes dry in a heat wave, then floods in a downpour. Every one of those swings is a little shock, and a shocked root system keeps pausing its growth instead of running steadily. The fix is a generous layer of mulch. Spread a thick blanket of organic mulch over the soil around your rose. Well-rotted compost, bark, leaf mold, whatever you can get, keeping it pulled back an inch or two from the stem so the base can breathe. That layer is doing several jobs at once. It insulates the roots and smooths out the temperature swings. It holds moisture in the soil so the roots stay evenly hydrated between waterings instead of lurching from soaked to bone dry. It smothers the weeds that would otherwise steal water and nutrients right out from under your hungry rose. And because it is organic, it slowly breaks down and feeds the soil life beneath it, building exactly the rich, crumbly soil that roses adore. And while we are thinking about position, one small bonus: roses love morning sun in particular. A spot that catches the early light dries the dew off the leaves fast, and dry morning foliage is far less likely to fall to black spot, which loops us right back to keeping those solar panels clean and working. Calm, cool, evenly fed roots under a mulch blanket, with morning sun overhead. That is a rose with nothing slowing it down. So let's go back to those two bushes, the tall, leafy fountain and the scraggly little thing a few feet away. Now you know exactly what separated them, because every one of these tricks points back to the same idea. Give a rose the fuel and the signals it is actually asking for, and then get out of its way. The bigger bush was planted at the right depth, so its bud union was never stressed. It was watered deeply and at the roots, with its leaves kept dry. It was fed like the glutton it is, with a secret hit of alfalfa to spark new canes. It had its flowers stolen before they could set hips, so it never stopped striving. It was pruned hard and open, not timidly. It got a magnesium wake-up for greener leaves and stronger basal breaks, and its roots were tucked under a calm, cool blanket of mulch. The little bush got none of that. Do even a few of these for your own roses, and you will genuinely see 2 to 3 times the growth. Taller, leafier, healthier plants throwing out flush after flush of blooms. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these were you getting wrong? Be honest, because for most people it is the watering or the timid pruning, and there is zero shame in it. Nearly every beginner guide teaches the gentle, cautious version of all of this. Drop a comment and tell me which trick you are trying first, because I read every one and they shape the videos I make next. And if this cleared things up for you, hit that like and subscribe button. Because here at BloomProof, this is exactly what we do. We take the plants everyone struggles with and show you they were only ever misunderstood. And before you click off, watch our 5 secrets to growing roses that never stop blooming, popping up on screen right now, because it picks up exactly where this one leaves off. Until next time, get out there, get your hands dirty, and grow something that lasts.